everybody! My name is Grace, and today we're gonna read The Tale of Benjamin Bunny by Beatrix Potter. Now, let's start. One morning, a little rabbit sat on the bank. He prickled his ears and listened to the trick-trot of a pony. A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off with a hop, skip, and a jump to call upon his relations who lived in the woods at the back of the Mr. McGregor's garden. That way was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Old Mr. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffeters, and would spot a pair at a bazaar. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender. Little Benjamin did not very want to much see his aunt. A nearly 19 boy he is. He came around the back of the fir tree, nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief. "Peter," said little Benjamin in a whisper, "who has got your clothes?" Peter replied, "The scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden," and described how he had been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor has gone out in the gig. Mrs. McGregor also, certainly for this day, because she was wearing her best bonnet. Peter said he hoped that it will rain. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole, calling, "Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch some more camomile." Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. They went away in hand and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here they looked down into Miss McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped to the old tumble centre of Mr. McGregor's. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. A proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell down head first, but it was of no consequence, as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft. It had been sown with lettuces. They left a great many old little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. Little Benjamin thought that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes, in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night, there was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Benjamin tried on the tam-o'-shanter, but it was too big for him. Then he suggested that they should fill the pocketchief with onions, as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home and ate a lettuce leaf. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuces for the Sunday dinner. The name of Benjamin Little Papa was old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces certainly were very fine. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently, he dropped half the onions. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. He led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. There was a little walk on the planks under a sunny red brick wall. The mice sat on the doorstep cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Presently, Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eye was big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. This is what those little rabbits saw around that corner. Little Benjamin took one look, and then, in half a minute less than no time, he hid himself and Peter in the onions underneath a large basket. The cat got up and stretched herself and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyways, she sat down upon the top of the basket. He sat there for 5 hours. I cannot draw you a picture of Peter and Benjamin underneath the basket because it was quite dark and the smell of onions was fearful and made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny cry. The sun got around behind the wood and it's quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket sleeping. At length there was a pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. The cats looked up and saw old Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco, had a switch on his hand. He was looking for his son and to punch him, I guess. Old Mr. Bunny had no opinion whatever of cats. He took a tremendous jump off the top of the wall at the top of the cart and cut it off the basket and kicked it on the greenhouse, scratching off a handful of fur that was too much surprise to scratch back. Wow! Now, when old Mr. Bunny had driven the cat into the greenhouse, he locked the door. Then he came back to the basket and took out his son Benjamin by the ears and whipped him with a little switch. He took out his nephew Peter. Then he took out the handkerchief of onions and marched out of the garden. When Mr. McGregor turned about half an hour later or earlier, he observed several things which perplexed him. And look, as some thought possible, had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs, where the footmarks were too ridiculously little. Also, they could not understand how the cat could manage to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door upon the outside. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him, because she was so glad to see that he found his shoes uncoiled. Cottontail and Peter folded up their pocket handkerchief. Old Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung from the kitchen ceiling, the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco. The end.